So I get to introduce these beautiful women and their role in this next section that we're going to be talking about. It's called Meridian Masters. And so 𝐾𝐨 was in that first training, and so was Karen. And we're going to talk a little bit about the research, a little bit about how EFT is kind of like this, about how EMDR is a little bit like this, but how this is unique in its own. And so 𝐾𝐨 and Karen are both trained in foot zoning. Okay, so they're both foot zone practitioners. And what was really interesting about the era of 2020, what I realized is like there are these body workers, these people, massage therapists and foot zone practitioners that couldn't meet with clients, right? They were like, they were in shutdown mode during quarantine. And what I realized is that this technique of Zero Point Meridian is something that you can actually do online and allow people to clear a lot of the things that other mind-body techniques clear. And so it was part of the inspiration to make it more available. And that I attracted this group, a lot of foot zone practitioners. And so, all right, so here's how that's going to lay out the next about 45 minutes, is that we're going to teach you a little bit about the distinctions between these different techniques. And then we'll get to a little bit of research, and we're going to actually do it. You guys get to actually experience this online because it works. So anything else? Let's see, 𝐾𝐨, that you want to mention about your background. Maybe just introduce yourself. And you did a full year with me, and you were like, it was so transformational for you. We have before and after pictures of 𝐾𝐨. I just want you to know.
Yeah. A lot has happened since I started working with Cristine. I've changed a lot and grown a lot, and appreciated the opportunity to learn Zero Point Meridian and about frequencies and how they work and how the vibration and all of that works, which set a great stage. I also just became certified in transformation code with Jeanette Van Leer, and so I'm now coaching with her as well. And so my life has really moved and continue to move thanks to the foundation that I received from Cristine. So I'm really appreciative of that. So yeah, I'm a mom. I have 5 kids. They're mostly gone. My youngest is at Utah State, and my other 4 are married, and I have 6 beautiful grandkids. So I'll be jumping off after this to go take care of them. But I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you.
I'm grateful you're here. We don't see you as much. I miss you. All right, Karen, tell us, I don't know, you have quite a story, but the highlight or two.
The highlight or two. So I met, 𝐾𝐿ae and I studied underneath the same foot zone school, but I had never met 𝐾𝐿ae. I'd heard her name in our circles, but I did not meet her until 2020 with Cristine's class. 2020 was the beginning of a whole massive shift for me in the last, it's 4 years now. In the last 4 years, I've had some major transformational shifts in my life. And Cristine, I want to say, is the catalyst of that. Because I knew that there were some things going on in my life. I didn't know where they were. And Cristine, like, exploded my world. Blew it all up, shattered. My whole world just came crumbling down in the last 4 years. And I'm slowly rebuilding it. And it's been amazing. Absolutely wonderful. I am currently getting my master's degree in mental clinical health counseling, which when I called Cristine, I actually called her and I said, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I need some insight. She goes, why? You've already been liberated. You're living in the free world of, having control of your whole life. Why in the world would you regress to go into something that is so structured and it blocks you? And I said, I don't know, but I just feel like this is where I need to go. And since that journey as well, my world again my mind has been opened. My world's been liberated. It's been incredible and amazing. So, but I want to contribute all of it truly to Cristine. Like seriously, she awakened me up to some things that I didn't even know existed. So.
Thank you. That's awesome. This is where we get to start to work together again. And I'm so excited. I have been waiting for Karen to get to that point where we both know what we're meant to do next. And so I was just going to say that what I did a meditation. So we're going to, you might hear more about this in the next day or two, but Quantum Wholeness Meditation is very different than a 𝐬𝐻WG&x meditation. If you're familiar with the 𝐬𝐻WG&x model, it's really cool. It's like super dynamic. It's like a lot of sound technology. He has this monotone voice and he puts you into a state. Okay. But it's also like keeps you awake at the same time. Right. So Quantum Wholeness Meditation, on the other hand, is a state of zero. And we talked a little bit about that. And we'll talk more about that. But this state of zero is what I learned from Quantum University and my trainings is actually the nothingness is where you find the consciousness, you find the self-awareness. There are things that happen in nothingness that are very personalized. Like that's what, like that lonely monk, or guru on the mountaintop, kind of model. And I was always afraid of like, I don't want to be alone, which is why I created meditation groups, which is another story. But in my meditation, I was surrendering that and tuned into Jackie's kind of prompt, which is, how do I express myself in a divine way more effectively than this being like, the academy or the trainings? Like, how can I use what I know in a way that impacts more people in a higher, level? And I got an answer. And this is not to be, super advertised, but I believe that I will attract by sharing this, the right connections. And it is to create an academic journal for Journal of Integrative Mental Health. And I've shared it in a few kind of select places because I have hired a consultant and he said, like, it's kind of like when you're going to go publish something, you don't want to make it too public before you know who's going to publish it. And so I'm careful, but I also am attracting the right partnerships for that to happen. And one of those is the right person to help with the research and the analysis of all that academic stuff. And it requires someone who's looking at not just the energy healing modalities, but has to write papers for universities, right, Karen? So that's where I'm going to segue to you and see, because when I started to get excited, it was Karen's working now in a mental health field with those, academic requirements. But what she's finding is something that I didn't find when I was doing my master's 25 years ago. And that is that things like EFT are now being published, which is exciting. Like we could actually work with that. So she opened that door back up to me. Whereas when I was talking about EFT, like nobody was talking about, there was one paper we were hanging on to and it was with phobias of, I don't know, it was spiders or something. And so that was all we had to work with. Now there's more. So Karen, what do you know?
Well, I know a whole lot, but let's get to the specifics here.
Specifically, what would you like to share that has to do with EFT research?
Okay. So when I first met Cristine, she had this named as the complete EFT method. And Kolae and I were actually talking and we're going like, this is so much more than EFT, but we don't know what this is. We don't know what to call this. And Kolae and I, we'd had a couple of conversations about how like our clients were struggling trying to understand like how this was different, how what Cristine was teaching us was different than EFT. And I was like, I don't know. And one of my first college classes, I actually had to go through and look at different modalities that counselors utilize. And I was like, let me start. The inspiration came, start with what Cristine's doing. And I'm going, but I have to have it research based. I had all of these criteria and Cristine's method, unfortunately, did not meet all of the criteria. I'm going, okay, then I need to break this down even further. So
let me just interject in case people don't know what EFT is. emotional freedom techniques. It was developed by Gary Craig back in the early 2000s, and it's the tapping. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I
All
was
right.
going to get there, but thank you, Cristine.
Oh, so sorry.
No, you're fine. You're totally fine. So anyway, so I broke my paper down. I was like, okay, Cristine's method is broken up into 3 chunks. And so I found all of this research and I dissected it all. And I called Cristine and I said, okay, Cristine, here's all my research. We need to rename this sucker. So one of the first things we looked at, of course, was the EFT. So as Cristine explained, this is the tapping method. It was developed in 1990. It supports all kinds of psychological disorders, the physical pain, and then but like with psychological disorders, as I've learned, it's not effective for some specific disorders. So we're looking at more mild disorders like anxiety, depression, overstressed environment type of a thing. So so I don't want to say like it fits the need for every psychological disorder, more of the mild ones. Okay. So, but then it also is really great for this reducing of stress and then controlling just basic emotions. And as I was beginning to use the 0 Point Meridian, I was seeing that it really was regulating basic emotions really, really great. What the studies began to show was that all these results with EFT can last up to 6 weeks, depending on the extensiveness of what the client is going through, and what they're trying to change in there. Okay. And then we moved into the EMDR, which is the eye movement desensitization regularization process. Okay. And that process, in order to get an EMDR certification, you have to have a degree in counseling or psychology. So Cristine had mentioned in her thing that she was a 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫 counselor. She can't get an EMDR license with just a 𝐬𝐶. You have to have a master's degree and you have to be in a particular level of your training. So I'm moving into my internships. I cannot get EMD certified until after I graduate even. So, and then
Not only that, but licensed.
Yeah, I have to be licensed. Exactly. So even though I graduate, but I'm not licensed as a counselor, I can't get EMDR training. So it's very selective on who can utilize this process. And the process is extremely intense. I didn't realize it until I was doing the research how intense the process is, because I've been involved with EMDR myself. I was in 2014, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, which is multiple things in your life that are happening on top of each other. So the PTSD is so compacted, it keeps happening over and over in a short period of time that you don't know what started the PTSD because everything is intertwined together. And so I went through EMDR training to help separate all of my trauma, and so we could figure out where the catalysts were and what the triggers were. But as I was reading the research, EMDR is actually an 8-step process. So the clients need to be worked through this all these 8 steps here in order to fully get the benefits of EMDR. And a lot of counselors do not follow all 8 steps. They just jump right into the eye movement, and then it pulls away from the full benefit of the training and of the healing process that can happen. And I've actually had friends, I had great results with EMDR. I've had friends that actually had worse results with EMDR, and they felt they were more messed up. And as I began processing what I went through and I started asking them questions, what they went through, it really depends on the counselor and how the counselor utilizes it. And so EMDR is really definitely one of those processes that definitely needs to be followed through step by step by step. Whereas EFT, you can miss a step here or there, and it's really not going to have a negative impact on the client, but it's not going to move the client all the way through the process either. So following all the steps of EFT is very critical too, in order to get the full benefit of the healing. And I think that's where Cristine's also comes into play. And I've had sessions with Cristine, I've had sessions with Kolae, I've had sessions with a couple of other practitioners that Cristine has trained, and we've skipped some steps because we're going, you kind of don't need this step. We've already resolved certain things. And again, I don't feel like I've like lost out on any kind of healing benefit from the 0 Point Meridian process. It's actually really quite smooth in being able to go through and work the client all the way through a process. But if a client doesn't need a certain step, then it doesn't detract from their healing process either. If EMDR is led all the way through the process, though, it promotes transformational changes. So those are life changes. So I tell people that I no longer have PTSD because I've gone through all of these processes and I've had all of this healing that I don't have triggers anymore from my previous 2014 traumas. Okay. So yeah, I don't have traumas from what happened in 2014 anymore. Between 2014 and the spring of 2015, I don't have triggers from that anymore. Do I have memories? Absolutely. But there's been a lot of transformational change as well. And that's another thing that 0 Point Meridian really does promote, is that transformational change. And then the final aspect of 0 Point Meridian is the breath work. So I just happened to find this study. Oh my gosh. I was like ecstatic. Like, sometimes things just happen. I've been looking for a lot of research on breathwork, and apparently I found this study a while ago, but I thought I had lost it, and it popped up first thing this morning. It was the first article that popped up this morning, which is actually, it's not one study. It is, what they've done is they did a literature review. So they pulled in all kinds of other research on breathwork. And so what the study did find out that, as you learned from 𝐼𝐸 yesterday, I love 𝐼𝐸, isn't he amazing? First of all, kudos to 𝐼𝐸 for all of his wonderfulness. But he taught me that when you breathe in and you hold your breath, it creates a natural stressor in your body, and it starts promoting your cortisol levels to rise up. But the second you open your mouth to this motion here, and then give that first breath outward, it creates a massive chemical change and neurological response that your system begins to be flooded with serotonin. And it's in that flooding of serotonin that you're able to move out of the fight or flight state and into the calm and rest state of and activate that parasympathetic nervous system. And that's where that breath work is so crucial and so important. Because in the 0 Point Meridian, EFT does not do breath work. EMDR does not do breath work. 0 Point Meridian does the breath work. And that breath work helps keep that client in that state of calm and rest, so they don't have adverse effects. Like I've had adverse effects with EFT. I've had adverse effects with EMDR. And those adverse effects are massive anxiety, tremoring. Your body will sometimes tremor if you're feeling too anxious. You're feeling like, I actually saw a client one time, and I was called into the room because a client had disassociated so far that he could not come out of his state that the counselor had put him into through the EM. She was using EMDR, and he had disassociated so bad he wasn't able to come out of his state. And the breath work would definitely have helped him stay in that neutralized state. And that, like Cristine says, that point of zero. Okay. So I love that she threw that breath work in there. And so, yeah, so I found this research. I shared all this with Cristine. I said, okay, it's time to rename you, sweetie. We have to rebrand this because this is not EFT. This is something so much more than that.
And thank you. It's important, just like Kolae gets credit for the alignment statement, that Karen gets credit for 0 Point Meridian title. Thank you.
Yeah, well, Cristine came up with the title. I just said,
but you affirmed it.
So, but one of the things Cristine shared as an analysis one time about the horses. I don't know if you guys have heard her share the story about the theory of the horses. So horses can carry like 6 times, they can pull 6 times their weight. And when you have one horse, he'll pull 6 times its weight. But when you add a second horse in, it doesn't just double how much they pull. It grows exponentially. So a third horse, we're not 3 times, we're exponentially growing. And that's what I feel like 0 Point Meridian has done, is taken these 3 modalities, and now it's created an exponential kind of growth into what we now have as 0 Point Meridian.
Thank you.
Okay. You're so welcome. So I'm going to open up. Cristine, do you guys have any questions real quick? Like Cristine only gave me a few minutes to talk. So
Yes.
like, I can go on forever about some of this research that I have found.
And
but
so we also, like in the chart, it's just a little bit different. We also want to contrast and compare a little bit with, so
yeah.
some of the things that are similar about EFT, EMDR, and Zero Point Meridian is they're designed to address trauma, which talk therapy that doesn't help. It makes it worse. So they're all using a modality that desensitizes trauma. So that is what they're all doing. So EFT uses meridian points. EMDR does not. EMDR uses eye movement. Most people don't use the eye movement from EFT. I have to laugh about it. So if any of you did the original Gary Craig training, there was some eye movement in it. And I'm curious if anybody knows it. Like it was really different. So it involved singing happy birthday, counting backwards, tapping on your hand at the same time as you're rolling your eyes. Anybody remember that?
My goodness.
Anybody know? So I actually learned it enough to do it with a handful of clients and nobody could remember it. Like it was not something you could take home and do. And so it was just really different. But originally EFT also involved eye movement. Now it really rarely does. Okay. EMDR is pretty much only eye movement. What's unique about Zero Point Meridian is it is both. When you get the advanced training, you get the eye movement component with that. We do a basic training that's just the tapping points. So there's both in there. Do you guys have some thoughts on differences and similarities that you've seen? Okay, so the difference is, again, EFT can be learned by anybody. In fact, you don't have to be certified in it. You can just, I had basically a guest on my last summit, and then she did some tapping with it, and she combined tapping and chakras, and it was like, well, wait, it's like we're combining meridians and chakras, and I just never done that, and so I got really confused. But she was never trained in anything. It was just like, she's like, hey, I think I'm going to try it this way. And so people can do that all the time. They're just like, here, I'm going to morph it into this or that. So there's really,
and I've seen the same thing, Cristine, where people have taken the EFT and they don't understand that it's a whole process, because somewhere along the lines they've been taught to just tap. Somewhere they've been taught that, and so they were like, oh, I know that this works for something, so let me learn to incorporate it with something else. I've seen Reiki masters use it. I've seen any kind of like energy worker type of a person utilize EFT. I've even had counselors utilize EFT. But again, it's not like I'm getting the whole process in it. I'm just getting a bit or a piece. And here's what's interesting. I don't know if you knew this, Cristine, but before I met you, I was actually in an EFT course.
Oh,
and I was being trained in it, and I'm going, but I feel like I'm missing something. I didn't know what that key piece was that I was missing. And the second I took Cristine's training, I dropped out of that other EFT course, because I'm like, oh my gosh, these are the pieces I was missing. I just felt like something was missing out of that course. And I don't know, I know it was breathwork. I know it was the eye movement. I know I needed something more than just the tapping.
Someone did also mention in the chat Rapid Eye. I love Rapid Eye. That is a powerful tool. And so Rapid Eye is like non-clinical, and it's a pretty intensive training. That's actually a really good one to compare to. And it's there's not a lot of tapping involved, but definitely eye movement and breathing. There's some breathing involved in Rapid Eye. And so Melody wanted to know the mouth shape for breathing out that you mentioned, Karen.
It's just the fish mouth.
The fish mouth.
Yeah. So when you breathe in, so you're always, every time, and I tell my clients, is every time you breathe out, open your mouth. Just open your mouth and just breathe out through the mouth, because that's when
I tell people blow the candle out across the room.
Perfect.
I do that kind of, let's really get it.
Yeah, but you don't want to breathe out through the nose. You want to breathe out through the mouth, because Yeah, because it's when breathing out through the mouth that changes the neurological response. Breathing out through the nose is a different type of neurological response, and which is a good one also. I can go into that on another day. But breathing out through the mouth is what actually brings in that process of activating the vagus nerve, which activates the release of serotonin, and that's where you want your clients to be.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so now let me tell you this other little criteria or distinction. So EFT, like all over the board, kind of like neurolinguistic programming, all over the board. NLP is what inspired impact training technologies. Did you ever actually do impact, Karen? You just heard of it?
No, I know some people that have, and they tell me they keep telling me I need to go do it. So
it's powerful.
It's
like all over the board, right? Any version you can imagine. Then EMDR is super specific. So it's kind of like homemade food is EFT, and EMDR is I won't say McDonald's. We'll say how can we say this? High frequency, right?
It's a good steakhouse.
Or yes, Five Guys.
There you go.
Whatever. It's like, yes, a really good steakhouse. So you know what you're going to get, and it's very specific, and you have to go through a process to get the franchise kind of training, right? So, but here's why EMDR is now really solid in the research world is because we're basing something off of a very specific protocol-driven technique. And in the mental health world, that's super rare. And it just gets me now how rare it is. And so Zero Point Meridian, because I was trained in EMDR back in 2009, I believe. The same year I actually did impact training, which is kind of another story. But I took that and I'm like, I see how they do this. It makes sense that they would do it like this. And then they supervise you as you're practicing and using the modality. That's what Zero Point Meridian is about. Is we have a very protocol driven process. It's a very specific training. It's a 2-day weekend model. And then you're supervised in it for 6 weeks. And so that's how it's so consistent that we have amazing research on it, which I'm now going to share. And then we're going to get to the actual practice of this. That's
Christy, real quick, before you start, Ellen wants to know where she can get the training. I know we're doing basic this semester. I don't know if we're going to be doing advanced.
We're going to do basic and advanced.
Okay.
In April or May. It'll probably be April, May, because it's a 6-week process. And okay, wait, let me get this going. So thank you for asking. So it is a process, and really what I found is the first step is going through liberation training, because when I left that out, it's kind of like Karen said, and you did liberation training after Zero Point Meridian, right? So
yeah, I did. It was really kind of crazy. Because now you have it as a prerequisite, which I think is absolutely incredible, because I did do it afterwards. Going through the class, I was like I don't understand some of the things she's talking about.
You didn't have the prerequisite.
Yeah, I had some basic knowledge, thankfully, because I'd already been a foot zone practitioner for a couple of years. The instructor of the school is my cousin, so she kind of basically took me under her wing and taught me more things, because every weekend I'm staying at her house. And so after class, I'm getting spoon-fed some other things as well. So it was really kind of great. I kind of had this advanced training course for 3 years. It was incredible. But I got into the training with Cristine. I'm going, okay, I don't understand certain things. Certain things were new to me. But something was happening that whole entire weekend that I didn't question anything Cristine said. Everything made sense. So when I took the liberation training, I was I was able to say, this piece I didn't have before, this piece. Now I understand what she was talking about in class, because now I have this training. So definitely, I love that liberation is a prerequisite, because even if you have basic understanding of frequencies and stuff, what you get out of the liberation training is above and beyond what you ever thought you knew.
Thank you. Yes, it is. I struggle to do it because I'm like, I don't want to force people to do more than they want to. And I realized I was just, in more cases than not, I was depriving people of something that was so powerful and needed to be part of their process, and the process that then you can also become a love self facilitator. And that's huge. Like if you don't have the love self training, it's really hard to support a client to do the full process that they need to go through, which, like you're saying, Karen, like if you haven't done the full emotional work, like you could start processing subconscious stuff and your whole system just goes like into a crisis because you haven't done the emotional pieces that are part of the healing. And so that's, I think, the other thing is that we want you to be both Zero Point Meridian certified and a love self facilitator so that you can take people through the full picture. So okay. And so a question about whether this training is on Zoom. Yes, we will do a liberation training online. I have not set a date because I'm literally like, and I've had people work with me, or they're like, you're so frustrating because you don't set a date. I'm like, no, because I'm choosing to attract the people that I will work around. Literally, I do this. And so if you feel like this is for you, I will create a date. And I literally do this for like, right now we're doing it for like 3 people. And I will do that because, and one of them's Marie, you know, and Adam, who's also on here. And they were like, they found me through the Quantum University video. And I'm like, okay, this is worth it because these guys get it. They're like, they're long haulers. They're going to like, you know, go the distance. So we're doing this. And that I will work around small groups because, and it's amazing, right? To go through it and have that personalized experience and feel very taken care of, I believe. Okay. So yes, let us know if you're interested. There are a couple of ways to let us know that. One is filling out the surveys. Now let me explain more. There's a lot of many distinctions in Zero Point Meridian from EFT. And one is we don't call it a setup statement. We call it an alignment statement, which you're going to get to learn from Kolae in just a minute. We do incorporate 0 point breathing, meridian-based intentions. And so I teach the students about what each of these points is about on the Chinese clock, which is kind of cool. Meridian balancing for reduced polarization. So we're doing something to stimulate the meridians and destimulate the meridians. And it's very protocol driven. There are scripts, there are outlines, so you feel very empowered. And then we do an NLP-based eye movement. The conscious intervention scale. So this scale is one of the things I use to track change. It is a before and after session criteria. So it's all based on positive intentions. And I want you to notice this. In my Quantum University training, they wanted real live research. They were used to working with doctors and medical instruments. Like they wanted to know, like, does this change things on a medical level? And part of the reason why psychology is considered like a pseudoscience or soft science to even a lot of people in the sciences is because we don't use that. We do self-reports. And so my degree in psychology was stronger in that area than other mental health fields. But mostly, and tell me if you can tell me any different, it's usually once. It's a full-blown psychological assessment. They get your diagnosis, they put you in a category, and they never look at you again. The only thing that you really have to track in the mental health world is the number of minutes you meet with a client. The insurance doesn't even care what you did. It's like, what did you meet with them for 52 minutes? Because that's a different billing code. Or did you meet with them for 53 minutes? Like that's literally what you're tracking. It's very sad. So what I found is that if you can track how is the client doing when they come in your door and how are they doing when you leave, there's a huge level of accountability in that. Especially when I was working with EMDR and I had clients melting down as they walked out of my office. And I'm like, okay, at least I have a secretary. Sit with the secretary. Let's make sure that you're okay. And then I started using this and I had my secretary track, and it's so powerful. Just think about this in the settings of, when you go into a clinic, have your waiting room give you this form or do it on digital. And when you're done, check back in and know, how are you? So these are the 10 areas. My mind is at peace. My body is physically relaxed and calm. I feel happier, energized. I'm able to let go of negative emotions and limiting beliefs. I feel a sense of emotional or spiritual connectedness. I can successfully make decisions and solve problems. I feel a sense of purpose going forward. I feel a level of compassion, a desire to serve others, and things are working out for the best good of all concerned. I had to change that. I had too many people complain that they're like, how do I know that? So it's for the best good. You can stop it there. So the idea is that these are consciousness factors. And when I tried to find tools, I had mindfulness tools that didn't have a single positively worded item. It was all negative. It was all symptom based. I'm like, what is wrong with this world? So just the awareness of a positively worded item can change the psychology. So just know that. Okay. When I started using this, I had a clinician. So I wanted to make it independent, kind of like that double blind model. She just took before and afters of her clients. They were just doing regular therapy. Well, she was an amazing therapist. She was doing not only EMDR, but brain spotting. So brain spotting is a more advanced kind of version of EMDR, and it allows you to connect with the eyes as well, and the part of the brain that's overactive. And so this is the score she would get. She had 51 51 therapy sessions. Their pre-score is 29.7, and as low as 16, which is very below average, as high as 43, which is above average. So if you look back at the score, if you rated 5 on all 10 items, that would be you are stellar. Your highest possible score is 50. Your lowest possible score is 10. Okay, so 16 to 43 is the range of a pre-session. Post-session, using these amazing tools, was 35.9. So if you see that, it's an increase of, was that 7 points? So more than a 6-point increase, which the standard deviation is 7 points. So it's a full standard deviation. We'll give it that. Okay. From pre to post session, top-notch therapy. So one standard deviation matters. That's when you start to say, yes, there's something happening and it has value. So I am going to go on record saying basic EMDR and brain spotting therapy are valuable. They do support change. It is good news. Were some clients that did get worse before they left the office. They came in okay-ish and they left a little worse. That does happen with EMDR and brain spotting even. Okay. So this is what that looks like, is that bump. All right. 7 newly, this includes Karen's results and Kolae's results. 7 newly trained practitioners provided a single 0 Point Meridian session across 48 different clients. Okay, so this is their first 10 sessions that they had to do for their certification. The clients that came in were actually lower functioning than the clinical therapy clients. So 28 instead of a 29. The range was as low as 10, whereas in the other one, it was as low as 16. Isn't that wild? And as high as 40. So not quite as high as the most functional therapy clients. I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought they're going to pick their friends and they're going to be fine. No, they picked people that needed this. Okay. Then following the 0 Point Meridian sessions, the client average was 42.6, more than 14 point improvement. Isn't that wild? 2 standard deviations above baseline. If you know numbers, this is doubly effective. You look at, like, they function lower, they got better. And the results have been duplicated across over 200 clients and dozens of practitioners. It's really cool.
Cristine, can I say something real quick?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm currently in a research class. I absolutely hate it. But one thing I learned was how to read these reports. And one of the things that I learned was if there's a 2 standard deviation jump, they call that an anomaly.
An anomaly.
They're calling it an anomaly.
And it's every time.
Yes. And so they actually they'll go back. And so if you're writing your reports and you go to submit your data and you're showing a 2 standard deviation jump, they will actually have people come out and review all of your research and review all of your studies to make sure that it is accurate and valid, because 2 standard deviation jumps in the counseling world, in the therapeutic world, does not happen.
In one session.
Exactly,
No
in one
less.
session. So yeah, they're going, oh, well, maybe this will happen over, course of time. Like the breath work ones, they were having two standard deviations, but they were showing the breath work over the course of 6 months.
Yeah.
So Cristine, it was like, it's really powerful that she's showing this stuff on a consistent basis, that these anomalies are happening that don't normally happen. Yeah.
It's amazing. And then the question is, what do we do with this? Because I wanted to make sure it reaches people, but I don't want it to see it. I don't want to see it diluted. I don't want to regret how I did it. And so I've been slow. And so, yes, this was 4+ years ago that we started to see this. And I've been slow to figure out, like, how does this work best? And part of it is it's part of a process of full transformation of the practitioner, so that that practitioner is in a solid place to continue this and to provide something more complete for their people. And so, yeah, thank you. Okay, 𝐾𝐨, good example of that. Well, and so I think, yes, we're good to go another 10 minutes and then we'll take our lunch break. So, are you good?
I'm good. What I love about this is the alignment statement. And the alignment statement is really important. It's setting you up for success. And a lot of places call it the set up statement, because it's setting you up. I like the alignment statement because we all want to get aligned. That's the purpose of doing anything, is to come into alignment. And what we're really working on is aligning our frequencies. So we start with the karate chop. The reason we do that is it is the small intestine meridian. And if you think about the small intestine moves things. That's its job. It's to help you digest the good nutrients and to move out the stuff you no longer need. And I love just that thought that we're moving out the stuff we no longer need, as we're tapping through this and doing the eye movement and the breath work. All of these things together work to move out the stuff we no longer need. So I love in Chinese medicine, the mental and emotional aspect of the small intestine assists with discernment and transforming pure and impure thoughts, just as the small intestine removes impure nutrients from the pure ones. And so even in Chinese medicine, they found that the small intestine is a very important part of getting rid of the things that we are no longer serving us. So with the alignment statement, we say, even though I love and accept myself completely with infinite love and gratitude, I release and forgive, and I am forgiven. There's a couple of things that I love about this. First, you're going to insert the problem. If it's a false belief, if it's an emotion, all of these things we can insert into this statement. So it can become very personalized and help you to see it on a personal level. Then the other part I love about how Cristine has put this statement together is, if you know Ho'oponopono, it consists of all of those things. 4 very important statements. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And thank you. With all of those things there, then we're also stating all of that as we're tapping. So we're putting in pure love and good things as we're removing the part that is no longer serving us. So we get to do both at the same time. Yes, Cristine.
I do want to, yes. So in your chart, this is another distinction. So in the original EFT statement, Gary Craig called it setup. And he said, I deeply and complete, even though I have this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. I think it was something like that. So and it's good, but this full statement came through time, and 𝐾𝐨 gets credit for the final and I will tell you, sometimes when I'm working with a client, like, you can feel the absolute shift that happens in that one little additional, and it's really an alignment. That one additional alignment is so powerful.
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
So I love that. And I had kind of forgotten about that I am forgiven part. The reason I added that, as I was working with clients, I began to realize that I release and forgive, but who are we releasing? We know what we're releasing because we've already inserted the problem, but What am I forgiving? And I'm forgiving myself for holding on to this, for allowing this to be a part of who I am, and I no longer need it. And so it really helps to say, I forgive myself. I let it go completely. I don't have
Which
to
is a
hold on to
perfect
that
tie-in with Ho'oponopono, because if you do the certification, it very quotes, certification for Ho'oponopono, and look at Dr. Hugh Lin explains in there, and I think Kali, you've done it, right? You've done it, and then some. And they explain in there that the reason that Ho'oponopono doesn't forgive them is because there's nothing to forgive. It's all your own clearing. It's all your own erasing, not anybody else's stuff that you,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So we're truly working from the inside out, which is the only way we heal. If we try to heal out here first before we heal ourselves, it never works. And we become more anxious, more, I can't get this. And those tremors and all of those things start to happen a lot more when we work from the outside in versus the inside out. This is the only person we have any control over, any ability to change is ourselves. So that's really important. So I would love it if we have a volunteer, and I can't see. So if Joanne or Cristine, if you want to see if we got a volunteer, I can only see like 4 people. So is there someone who would like to volunteer to do the alignment statement with me? That would be awesome.
Let's grab Shayna.
Okay, Shayna.
Okay, perfect.
All right, Shayna, let's do you. So unmute yourself.
That would help.
What is it? What is it that you would like to work on today?
I accept the change of my mother's death.
That's hard.
Okay.
That
Okay.
I need to get a little more this change that happened when she died, how it changed my life.
Okay.
I suggest this works better for anxiety than grief.
Okay.
So going towards the fear.
Okay.
So what's the fear of the change?
The fear that I am living more alone. I fear that that's a fear, living alone with someone else that doesn't accept me.
Mm.
So the fear of being rejected by this person is a good one.
All right. So I'm going to say a statement and then
Have
you're
a rate
going
it
to
on a
repeat
1
it.
to 10.
Oh yeah. On a 1 to 10, where are you at right now? 1 being I'm totally at peace.
And we got specifics. That was good.
I would
1
say
being
2.
totally a 2. So you're
A 2.
okay.
I'm low.
All right. Let's see if we can move that. So you're going to start with the karate chop. You can do it either way. You're good. Okay. Even though I feel that even though I am at fear of being alone.
Even though I fear that I'm being alone.
I love and accept myself completely.
I love and accept myself completely.
With infinite love and gratitude.
With infinite love and gratitude.
I release and forgive.
I release and forgive.
And I am forgiven.
And I am forgiven.
Now I want you to take a deep breath in. Hold it. Exhale out through the mouth. And really push up with the diaphragm, exhaling as much of that air out as you possibly can. And then inhale back in. We're going to do it 2 more times.
Okay.
Even though I have this fear of being alone.
Even though I have this fear of being alone.
I love and accept myself completely.
I love and accept myself completely.
With infinite love and gratitude.
With infinite love and gratitude.
I release and forgive.
I release and forgive.
And I am forgiven.
And I am forgiven.
Deep breath in. Hold. Exhale out. Really exhaling all the way, all the way, all the way. And inhale back in. And one more time.
Third
go
one,
ahead.
I suggest we address that rejection piece.
Yes.
But I'd like to invite everybody can relate to that. And to put in the chat, if you can relate to rejection, find a specific arena where you might feel rejected. Shayna, thanks for being vulnerable with us.
No problem.
Yes. And everybody do this with us this time.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's tapping. Even though I feel rejected,
Even though I feel rejected,
I love and accept myself completely.
I love and accept myself completely
With infinite love and gratitude.
with infinite love and gratitude.
I release and forgive,
I release and forgive,
and I am forgiven.
and I am forgiven.
Deep breath in. Hold. And exhale out. Remember to push up with that diaphragm. Really feel the air leave your lungs. And inhale back in. Okay, you did a great job.
Thank you.
You were at a 2. I want you to think about where you are now.
I'm at least a 7.
That's awesome.
It looks like, so we should have clarified the SUD score is different, but a SUD score 10 is anxiety.
The
So
other
if it was maybe a 7, it went to a 2. Is that
yes.
Yeah.
down?
So
Okay,
she
that's what
would
happened.
have been at
We
an
just
8
flipped it.
because she said
From
a
7
2.
to a 2, definitely.
Yeah.
Woo!
Can I say something real quick too?
Mhm.
And so I'm telling everybody on here, as you find yourself struggling to say the statement, I struggled at one point too, and Christine's like, just keep saying it, and 𝐽𝐸's done the same thing with me. Just say it, and it will shift. It will move. The statement will become easier to say, and that's one thing I love about this process, because as you find a hard spot that you're struggling with getting through, the process is such a gentle healing process. You get to kind of move at your own pace a little bit, and it resolves. Everything eventually does resolve through the full process. And I've never gotten that with the EFT, and I've never gotten that with EMDR. I've done rapid eye therapy as well. I mean, I had a lot of treatment over the years, and this is the one that is the gentlest, and it really does move everything through beautifully. And then also, Christine, you mentioned that this doesn't work for grief very well, which in a way is true, but I also want to, I'm questioning that a little bit too, because grief is layers of other things as well.
Yeah.
So Shayna, that's why, when she said, let's not focus on the grief in the morning, but what are the components that make up grief? You have anger, you have resentment, you have denial. And so if you can break down what the aspects of the grief are, then yes, this will work through the grief. I did work this through with grief with 𝐽𝐸 one time, and it was a powerful, powerful session. But we were able to break down what the component of the grief was. So it does work with grief if you can find what the layer is.
Yay.